Good
Okay.
morning, Shelley Center.
Good morning, Daniel.
Very nice to meet you. Welcome to Montreal.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's a virtual meeting this time, but fortunately, we'll be able to meet again for real in the near future, I hope.
Yes, I hope so too. I was there a number of years ago, and I've been there a number of times, and
Okay.
it's lovely. And even though I don't get to meet these people in person that I've been working with, it's been really lovely, and it's kind of amazing that we've been able to find a level of depth of
Yeah.
conversation. It's virtual.
We're trying to manage with the situation as the best we could. Fortunately, people are there too, so and they seem to be happy. So we're happy for them and grateful. So we have this little interview that we do with all our guest teachers that we have. So we're continuing the tradition even within the pandemic. So my first question is very simple. Where are you from and where do you live?
Well, I'm originally from Colorado in the States, and I live in New York City. Um, I've lived in California, and I'm back in New York, and I'm actually just outside the Bronx in Yonkers, New York.
Cool. And how did you become a dancer?
I started dancing in college at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and my sister was a dance major in that dance program, and I was not sure what I wanted to do, saw some concerts, took a class, and kind of got hooked. So I started pretty late, and I had a pretty short sort of training outside of performance. Started performing in just like 2 years, and the stage has pretty much been my training.
Well, that's a great place to learn.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And what about the teaching? How did it start in your career?
Teaching dance, teaching
Yes.
Alexander technique. Well, teaching dance, I guess in some ways it was parallel to my performing career, especially when I was working with the Trisha Brown Company, because we were touring in performance, but also teaching workshops and teaching master classes and that sort of thing. I had taught here and there as a, poor freelance dancer, but I guess the real teaching and the interest in pedagogy and language and transmission of ideas, if we want to call that teaching, started when I was still performing in the Trisha Brown Company. Her work was very idiosyncratic and at the time had a particular quality that that was new in many places in the world, and I was one of the ambassadors who had to transmit it and put it into language. So I guess I kind of became a teacher then.
Great. And so yeah, you became a teacher as through the Trisha Brown technique. Would you how would you describe your teaching philosophy?
My teaching philosophy. Well, it even gets at the word teaching. I would say that I am more of a facilitator than someone who teaches, gives information. Just making the space for someone to teach themselves in a way. Finding the language and the environment for someone to recover what they already know somehow, somewhere, that might not have been visible to them. So yeah, it's total collaboration. It's not something I do. It's something I collaborate with other human beings.
And when so you give workshop, I mean, around the world. You've been traveling a lot. What is there something that, like, let's say for instance, like at the end of a full week, like you're doing now with us in Montreal, what is the one thing that you would like them to keep from you at the end of the week, at the end of the workshop?
Hmm. I think something like that, that they are their own teachers, that if we've ignited or invited a process where organically their own interests can become their research, and they can also become accountable for them and responsible for them. I think that's what I would wish, because yeah, I think just finding tools to start to trust yourself as a teacher. And of course, we are ensemble creatures, we're collaborative creatures. We're going to keep expanding what we know by being with other people, but essentially um, finding tools for remembering that we're primarily our own teachers. Because of so if I may, what I'm teaching this week is Alexander technique rather than a dance class. Of course, it's applicable to dancing and acting and music and all kinds of ways of making art. But it's really interesting for me to teach Alexander online because I can't, I'm used to touching it in group workshops and in private lessons. And it's interesting to not have that capability. And actually, I think about the fact that Mr. Alexander himself never had a teacher and taught himself and discovered all of this and went through his own process. So it's very interesting to find ways to invite people to, again, sort of teach themselves and go through their own process and still have some objective tools and information.
And like we can't avoid talking about the situation that we are in at the moment. I'm talking about this pandemic that we're going through. So now, like this week, you're teaching online. It's a different approach. How do you manage? What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think like everyone else, it can be extremely frustrating. I feel like I'm losing some things but gaining others. It's a particular moment in time where, you know, we have to kind of grow new limbs. We've been chopped down, and we have to figure out how to grow new limbs and what those feel like and what they move like, and how they're going to support us. So there's, as I was just saying in class this morning, knowing things is very valuable, but we're also engaged in a process where not knowing things could also be valuable. And that's really where we are right now, in this not knowing place. It can be really frustrating, well, or weird, I should say. Sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of yelling at, there's nobody here in my room, in my home, and yet here I am talking. I think for dance teachers, it's even harder, and I just bless them, bless all the dancers who are trying to learn and teach online, because it is really, really strange. I taught one last week, and you know, it's very odd to not be able to see who's there, or
yeah, and it's completely transforming the sharing experience that we were mentioning before. There's like more than a wall, there's a distance, so yeah, I totally understand. So yeah, hopefully it won't last for too long. Fingers crossed.
No, I know.
You worked with Trisha Brown for many years. Was there, other than her, a teacher that had an impact on you, an influence, or like a mentor or something?
Well, all my teachers have, and all my collaborators have. Yes, of course, I have an Alexander technique teacher who I started studying with way back when a million years ago, when I came to New York, and when I was dancing with both B.B. Miller and Trisha Brown and onward. And she, her name is June Ekman, and she is the one who inspired me to train to become an Alexander Technique teacher. Alexander Technique teacher is a place where I do feel I want to use the word teacher as opposed to like practitioner or something like that. But she is now 88, and in the Alexander world, we really, really, we have a lot of reverence for our senior teachers because they've been thinking about this work for so long and so deeply, you know, over such a long period of time and with so many different situations that still to this day, even though she suffers from some memory loss and some dementia, she so deeply knows this work and teaches me all the time. So her name is June, and she was also Trisha's teacher. She was Yvonne Rayner's teacher. She worked with Pavarotti maybe, and John Bon Jovi, and all kinds of people. She's my mentor. And she was also a dancer. I also have had the privilege of working with Yvonne, and she continues to teach me, Yvonne Rayner.
Yeah.
Deborah Hay, huge influence. So many people in my life that have influenced me very deeply. John Cage, Robert Rauschenberg.
Yeah. Bunch of very interesting and very nice people. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I would say John and Robert as non-dance people, Bob Rauschenberg, John Cage, that's, I guess, where the influence of my philosophy is. You know, if I look at early photos of Rauschenberg, he takes pictures of the water towers outside the window. It's just kind of like everything is already there. It's just a matter of seeing it. And that's what I mean about everything's already here. It's just a matter of finding the conditions under which we can see it.
For those of us who are listening or joining in, could you like because I assume some people are not very familiar with Alexander Technique. So could you, like in a nutshell, explain to us what it is actually?
It's very hard in a nutshell.
Yeah, while I was asking the question, I was like, well, maybe that's not possible. So we'll try.
Yeah, I'll try. You know, so it's actually a question I ask the participants of every workshop, like, what do you think it is? And it ends up being all these different things. It is a philosophy. It is a technique. There's technical information about the body, joints, you know, real practical things about how the body is designed and how we can access a kind of optimal use of that design through our awareness and what Alexander called thinking, which sounds very intellectual, but it turns out is also very physical. So awareness or conscious awareness is kind of the currency. It values delicacy and subtlety over as powerful as, you know, big effortful training for dancers, for example. And it's not about posture, let's put it that way.
Okay.
The word that Alexander said or used was the word use. So everybody has a neck, has a head, everybody who's listening have shoulders. Right in this moment, if I ask you, Daniel, to notice how you're using your neck or your big toe or your left shoulder blade, you might draw awareness to that place. And we notice that we are somehow involved with the use of ourselves. And so the functioning of ourselves with this design, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you. It's very clear.
Good.
You've been teaching for a number of years. What are the difference that you notice, like you now as a teacher, and between, and then you, as when you were a student, do you feel that there's a difference between those two, the way the teaching is done, the way that the students are receiving the material, the way they are involved in the class? Did you notice any, do you notice any differences between then and now?
Yes, very much so. I mean, although I never trained classically, I didn't, as I said, I didn't have a huge amount of studio training. I didn't take class. I mean, I'm one of the few people, until recently, I had never taken a Cunningham class. I didn't know the specific techniques.
Yeah.
So I would say that part of my background is that I didn't have a lot of technical training, but I was still part of basically a hierarchical system. The teacher is the authoritarian, or the authority who knows the material, and the students do what they say, whether it's explicit or implicit by, you know, raise your arm. Okay, raise my arm. I'm going to obey the teacher here. Make sure you have 60% of your weight on your heel and 40% of your, well, I had no idea how to divide my feet into percentages, but I would try because the teacher would say so. So there's that. There was, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing, was a less democratic sort of idea of a human being being able to reflect and take responsibility more for themselves. Now, that's kind of abstract, but I think I was part of the wave of teachers in the 80s who started classes on our backs on the floor rather than upright, who got away from but maybe came back to tendus and pliés and a forward-facing body of students with the teacher in front, to circles, to people introducing themselves, to asking questions to the students rather than just being the answerer of questions. And I think that back then in the 80s, I was aware that there were places I would go in the world that had never done that before, and that was interesting. And also how language comes out of a physical experience and then can be poured in to the body again to create a new physical experience. I think that's also different than the way I started off when I was a younger dancer.
Yeah. You just mentioned going around the world. Do you notice any differences depending on where you're teaching in the way the material is received or the way the people interact, or is there any cultural difference you may notice? Or
for me, it's extraordinary how similar everybody is.
It's universal in a way, yeah.
So much, and even, you know, behavior in your street clothes versus behavior in your dance clothes, how dancers walk when they're in the studio versus how they walk when they're in the street. You know, if I just say, okay, everybody stand up, all the dancers I know, almost every culture in the world, they will look at their feet and make sure they're in parallel and sort of stop looking around with their heads. It's really, you know, that's happened all over the world for me. It's very universal how there are these collective habits, collective behaviors of dancers, no matter where they are.
Yeah, it's like an international community in a way.
It is, but even on this unconscious level, where we, you know, if you ask a dancer to roll up, they will do a very, you know, vertebra by vertebra. Nobody just comes up like a kid would come up. They've already trained themselves how they're going to roll up and how their feet should be arranged, and, you know, how their eyes should be. We go into lots of habit together. And I'm part of that too.
Yes, so am I.
Yes.
So before we finish, we have a little game that we play with our guests. So it's just a couple of questions. The goal is to answer as quickly as you can. There's no right or wrong. It's the first thing that comes to your mind. That's it.
Okay.
So
does it count that in America and we're all freaked out right now.
There's nothing about politics.
Okay.
So it should be, yeah, it's a little bit lighter than that.
Good.
So what other profession would you have liked to attempt?
Painting.
Something you always wanted to do, but you never did.
Oh. Been so lucky. Let me think. Oh my gosh, I don't know. That's terrible that I don't know.
Well, maybe you're not missing anything. That's
I
wonderful.
don't have regret. Maybe not. Something like I'm blanking.
We'll come back at the end.
Back to it. Okay.
Creation or performance?
Oh boy, aren't they the same thing?
Well, what I mean is, you rather work in the studio or be on stage?
Well, for me, they kind of are the same thing, because I feel
Okay.
like of creating while you're performing, and that's a whole other thing
Yeah,
that
it's
I'm
true.
very interested in. But performing.
One word to describe yourself.
One word.
Tough.
Here.
Nice. Reality or fiction?
Fiction.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
What is your addiction?
Popcorn.
A show that made an impact on you?
John Jasper's duet with two naked men. I can't remember the big empty. The big empty.
So would you prefer losing all your memories or never being able to create new ones?
Ooh. I guess I'm okay with letting go.
If you could change one thing, what would it be? Oops.
America. And not even just Trump, but whoever is voting for him. If I could change them, that's what it would be. Because I feel like it's indicative of a bigger thing.
My last question is, what is your state of mind at the moment?
Well, as I said, there's a lot of anxiety here today. And so teaching and talking about, in some ways, I'm kind of distracted. And I'm very interested in this notion of being distracted. That in a way, distraction is a kind of integration instead of something that's wrong or something that moves us away from what we want to focus on. So I'm really grateful to be talking to you right now and to imagine a bunch of dancers being part of this, and to have worked with the students this morning, the other human beings this morning, to bring me kind of back to the way I organize myself as a dancer, as opposed to the anxiety that maybe the citizen part of me might be. That fundamental organization that reminds me I am a dancer, I am a mover, I don't need to get stuck. So if that's an answer that you can accept.
That's a very good answer. Shelley Center, it was a privilege and a very great pleasure to meet you and having some time to talk with you.
Thank you.
I really wish that the next time we'll meet will be face-to-face, and hopefully I'll be also in the studio participating.
Me too. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Bienvenue. It's a pleasure. And in the meantime, good luck with all your projects, with everything, your future endeavors, and take care.
Thank you. You too, Daniel. Thanks.